Hi everyone. Today, let's talk about buying a car. How much should you really spend on buying a car? What percentage of your income should you spend? 35%, 10%, 20%? What makes the most sense? Should you pay in cash? Should you put a down payment? Should you finance? How long should you finance? What is the cheapest way to own the car of your dreams? And let's not forget that a car is a depreciating liability. In honor of today's episode about buying cars, we have what's considered to be one of the greatest cars of all time, the Ferrari F50. If you have big dreams like buying one of these, or if you're just getting started on your financial journey, definitely like and subscribe. Apparently they come in other colors besides red. This was a road legal race car, and they currently sell for between $2 million and $3.5 million. To keep your dreams at the front of your mind, like and subscribe. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So how much should you spend on a car? It says here, next to buying a house, a car is likely one of the biggest purchases you will make in your lifetime. The average cost of a new car is $33,543 in 2015, compared to $18,800 for a used one. Remember those numbers because they will come in handy later. Also, don't forget that every year you will have to pay a registration fee, as well as insurance costs, as well as gas. It says here that the average family sedan costs $8,698 annually on average. With all of that in mind, how much should you pay? It says here the first rule is to have a debt-to-income ratio below 36%. This means that 36% of your income should go to things like loan payments, which includes your car payment. Another rule is 15%. So 15% of your take-home income would go towards your car expenses. So if your net pay after taxes is $3,500, it's best not to spend more than $525 on car costs. However, it says here that the 15% rule generally only applies to people who aren't paying off other loans besides a mortgage. So if you have other debts like credit card debt or personal loans or student loans, then you should use a lower percentage. Another generalized rule is to not spend more than half of your yearly income on a vehicle. So if you make $50,000 per year, you shouldn't spend more than $25,000 on a vehicle. Moving on to my second article here, they say, how much should I spend on a car? As little as you can. They expand on this further by saying most frugal people I know go out of their way to spend as little as possible on a car. And this is because cars are depreciating liabilities. Anytime that you buy a car, it's going to be worth less than what you paid for it. As soon as you drive that car off the lot, it's now worth less. And even used cars will still depreciate over time. To give you an idea of what that looks like, here's a graph of what the value of a new car will be in 5 years. So if you buy it today for $25,000, in 2 years it will be $15,375, and in 5 years it'll be $9,112. So doing the math here, in the first 5 years, you're losing $15,888 buying a new car. So the way around this is buy that car at year 3. Buy it for $12,761, and then you're only losing a few $1,000s as you use the vehicle. And if you notice, the steepest part is right off the lot. So in that first year, you're losing over $6,000 in value. Whereas from year 3 to year 5, you're losing closer to $3,000. And of course, none of that depreciation accounts for the fact that you are paying interest on whatever loan if you financed your vehicle. Moving on to the most frugal rule, 10% of your income. So that means if you earn $25,000 per year, you should be looking at a car somewhere around $2,500 to $3,000. And even if you earn $80,000 a year, you should still be looking at a car between $10,000 and $12,000. Now, this may seem pretty cheap, but if you have financial goals that require a lot of capital, this is what you have to do. And when you buy a car that's cheap, it also reduces the amount of money that you lose to depreciation and the amount of money that you pay in interest. Now, to be honest with you, I did not follow this rule. I did not only spend 10% of my income. And that's because I do enjoy vehicles, and I also wanted to buy something that was a little bit more reliable. I did buy a car that was a couple of years old, and it had a reasonable amount of miles on it. But there were other factors like I needed four-wheel drive in my vehicle. So money is not the only factor, but this is still a good rule to strive for. And that's exactly what the author says here. They say if you have a young family and two working parents, then reliability is extremely important. And having at least two vehicles, somewhere between 2 and 3 years old, and only having 20,000 miles on them, the newness of the cars is good for their reliability. So the compromise here is 20% of your annual income. So what does that compromise actually look like? Well, 20 to 25% of your $25,000 is $5,000 to $7,500. And if you make $50,000, then you can look at $10,000 to $15,000, which should give you plenty of options in the used car market. So let's talk financing. First rule of financing is to put at least 20% down. According to Edmunds, a new car loses 9% as soon as you drive it off the lot, and within the first year you will lose 19% of its value, which we already talked about. And if you don't put 20% down, then you risk going underwater on the loan, which means you owe more on the car than it's worth. So if you have a loss, then potentially you would not receive enough money from the insurance company to pay off the loan. There is some insurance protections that you can pay extra for to ensure that this doesn't happen, but it's a good rule of thumb to put at least 20% down anyway. Another rule is you should never go over a 4-year term. The longer your term, the more interest you pay, and the more interest you pay, the more money comes out of your pocket. Plus, any money that you lose to interest is already on top of the money that you're losing to depreciation. Also, keeping a shorter loan term will keep you in check with the type of vehicle you're buying and how much money you're spending on it. People generally choose a longer term because they can't afford a shorter term, and that's because they're probably buying a car that they shouldn't be in the first place. And lastly, for this article, they mention that you shouldn't spend more than 10% of your monthly income on your loan and interest combined. This is somewhere around the 10% frugality rule, but this time they're even saying that you should include your insurance in that 10%. And if you do that, then you will be able to save for things like an emergency fund or a down payment for a house. So let's take a look at the numbers. If you remember, the average used car was $18,800, and that's what we're going to take a look at on this chart. So then we have the length of the term, 24 months being the shortest to 48 months, which is what they suggested. And then the longest I could find was 72 months. And then I did different interest rates, which you can see here, 4%, which is just about the lowest you can get on a used car, 8%, and then 16%. 16% is representative of your highest subprime interest rates. I know there are higher that exist, but please don't ever take a car loan that's anywhere around this number. So let's see exactly what it means. If we have an $18,000 loan at 24 months, if you get the lowest interest rate and you pay it off at the fastest you possibly can, you're still going to pay $19,593. So you're still paying close to $800 extra in just interest in the first 2 years. And if you stretch that out to the longest at 72 months, you'll pay $21,177. So even at the lowest possible interest rate, which you are unlikely to get at 72 months, you will still pay $2,377 more than the original cost of the car. So even if you follow their rule at 48 months at 4%, you will still pay $20,375. Again, still paying a few $1,000s to finance this vehicle. Taking a look at the chart here, you can see at 24 months, the interest rate doesn't make a ton of difference. I mean, you still pay more money for the higher interest rates, but those interest rates start to matter more and more as you go out in term. All right, let's quickly take a look at what it costs for a new car. Again, 24 months at 4%. You're talking about a pretty big payment now at this point. You're talking about almost $1,500 a month to pay that car off in 24 months. And even if you did that, you're still paying almost $1,500 in interest. Now, when you take that out to 48 months, you're talking about $36,353, which is almost $3,000 more than the original cost of the car. And remember, with a new car, you're losing just about 20% of the value of that car in the first year. And then stretching that out to 72 months, where it gets into a more reasonable payment at $524 per month, $37,784. So more than $4,000 in interest over the course of that time just to own that car. And over the course of 72 months, which is 6 years, that car is going to be worth somewhere in the vicinity of 30% of your original purchase price. And then, of course, just to reiterate, don't pay 16% for a vehicle. If you were to pay 16% for 72 months, you would pay over $52,000 for a $33,000 car. And you can see that represented here. The gray bar, which is significantly over the blue and orange bars, is that higher interest. And you can see how much of a difference just the interest rate makes. Of course, the term does play a role, but that interest rate really does affect the amount of money that you pay. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy cars and I like looking at them, but fully understand what you're doing when you purchase a vehicle. Most likely, you're buying something that's going to depreciate unless it looks like a car like this, and you're going to pay interest on whatever your purchase price is unless you buy that car in cash, which I don't suggest doing, but that's a topic for another time. Of course, this is not financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Let me know in the comments section if you have any questions on this or what I did with my own vehicles. And definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. And with that, let's get to today's jelly. So today's jelly is the stylophone, which is a weird kind of synthesizer that was made quite a few years ago and seems to be making a resurgence on YouTube. So here's a video of someone playing a stylophone, and they're hitting some of the most classic songs. So here's what that sounds like. As you can see, it's a pretty neat little instrument. Definitely sounds cool and adds a new twist to some old classics. Let me know in the comments below if you like how it sounds. Definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and have a great day.